Hello, it is time for episode 6 in my beginner's Lightroom course where I am trying to show you as much of Lightroom as I can, and today we are going to look at the Develop module. Okay, so welcome back to the channel everybody, Richard here. It's great to have you. My channel is all about photography, editing, everything I learn I'm trying to share, so welcome. If you've not been here before, this is part of a series of videos I'm doing all about Lightroom Classic, which is a bit different to Lightroom Creative Cloud. This is number 6 in the series. I'm not sure how many there's going to be because it depends on how long it takes me to do each video. I don't want it to be too long. So I'm going to try and keep them bite-sized chunks rather than an hour long or something. So have a look at episodes 1 to 5 if you're interested. That's all about how to get it, how to download it, how to install it, and a quick look around the library module. We're now moving on to the Develop module, where we're going to start looking at all the panels in the Develop module and how you use them, any hidden sort of keys and buttons and features that you may not have noticed, and what each panel is for. So I'm going to spend most of the time looking at the computer. Let's do that. We're going to jump into Lightroom right now, and I will see you at the end. Okay, so here we are in Lightroom, and if you've been keeping up with the series, episode 5, we finished talking about the library module and how you can pick, flag and rate your photos ready for editing, and that brings us nicely onto the Develop module. And in this video, I'm going to go through the panels in this Develop module and explain what they do and have a real quick overview on how to use them. I'm going to try and keep this as short and sweet as possible. So quickly, the Develop module is the second tab in at the top right here. You have the library one, followed by the Develop module. On the left-hand side, there is a large panel going from top to bottom that has things like navigator presets, all these options here that we're going to go through, and some 2 buttons at the bottom, which I will cover. Then you have the panel in the middle, which is where you see your main photo that you're working on and any different views that you want to look at. Along the bottom you have the thumbnail strip, very similar to the thumbnail strip in the library module. You can adjust the size of it, and a lot of these buttons are identical. And on the right hand side you have the main editing panel, where you can decide whether you want to do the basic edits or tone curves, all these other things here that we're going to run through really quickly. So first of all, let's start on the panel on the left. At the top you have the navigator panel. This is the one where you can, again, same as a library module, you can click on an area and move around and zoom into a particular point. If you zoom in more on the actual picture in the middle, you can see the white square in the top left and just sort of target any area that you want to zoom in. You have these options at the top here: fit, which fits the picture on the screen, 100%, and you can choose one here. So let's pick this on 300. Now, because that is highlighted in white, if I press zoom, it will zoom between fit and 300, fit and 300. Or if I highlight the 100%, which can't be changed, you zoom in between fit and 100. I tend to leave it on 100. Occasionally I may go to 300, but whatever is highlighted, that is what you will alternate between the fit and the percentage that you've chosen. You can choose this to fill, which will fill the entire square in the middle, but if you have a picture that is wider than the area showing, like we do with this pano, then you lose the ends of it. So I tend to leave it on fit and zoom in whenever I want to. So that is the navigator panel at the top here. Down the left below that, it's the same again. You can right mouse click, select the ones that you want to have visible, and if you want solo mode or not, which basically means you only have one panel open at a time. That was explained in a previous episode, but we are going to leave all that as it is, and we are going to have a quick look at the presets. So these are presets that you may have made yourself or ones that you may have bought and imported. You do get some standard ones from Lightroom, and it's just where you can find the presets that you may have saved that you want to apply to any of your images. Let's reset that back to normal. Really simple. I'm going to cover presets in another video where we sort of set them up, save them and things like that. Below that we have snapshots. Now snapshots is really good. Let's say that I'm going to make this photo a little bit brighter, and I'm going to desaturate it slightly just so there's a difference, okay? And I'm thinking, right, I like that, so I'm going to take a quick snapshot. So come over to the left here where it says snapshots, hit the plus button. I'm going to leave it on date and time for now. You could call it snapshot 1 or whatever you like. And then I'm thinking, right, I want to do something different. I want to make it black and white, and I want to make it really high contrast. And then you think, no, don't like that. And then you realise, oops, what was the snapshot? What was it like before? And in the left hand side here you can see that you've got a snapshot that I've just taken on the 27th of March. This is what I was doing just to test it earlier. Snapshot on the left here at 2:09. You can go back to exactly how it was, or you can go back to prior to that, and it basically just, as you click on that plus button, it will save what is on your screen. So we are back to where it was. That's really useful if you want to sort of, you get to a point in your editing and you think, yeah, I think I'm there. I just want to take a quick snapshot, but I'm going to carry on. Realise you've ruined it and you want to go back easily. That's what the snapshot is for. It just saves a moment in time. Next down below there is the history. Now history is a history of everything you have done to that image. So these are all the things I've been messing around with. There's a lot on here. I wouldn't know what I've done here, to be honest with you, but you can go back to a point in time where undo what you've done one step at a time, basically. You know, so you can go all the way back through. These are all the things that I've been mucking around with earlier on this photo, and we can just go back and it just undoes the last one. So I'm going to go back to reset settings. It just gives you a history of what you've done to that photo and in what order. So you can go back to any point that you want, but it will take out all the edits prior to that. But it's basically just a history of the edits that you've done to the photo, basically. Beneath that is collections, exactly the same as collections in the library panel. You can add photos to here if you want to and sync them to your phone. I have explained that in a lot more detail in the previous videos, so there'll be a link below. So if you want to head back there and check out those videos, I will make sure I put a link to that particular video if you do. And then below that we have copy and paste. Now these just copies any edits that you've made. So I'm going to go into this photo here, and I'm going to make it black and white. I do black and white because it's easy to see there's been a change. And I'm just going to click on copy, and it's going to ask me what settings I want to copy. And I am just going to copy the things in the basic panel, which corresponds to the basic panel on the right hand side here. And I've ticked them all for now. Even though saturation is the only one we've adjusted, we are going to copy every adjustment from the basic panel. And then I'm going to come over to any picture. Let's come over to this photo here, and I'm going to paste, and it's just applied that desaturation to that image. So really simple. It's just basically if you want to copy any changes you've made from one photo to the next, I'm just going to Control Z, and we are back to where we started. So that's pretty much the left panel done. There is a bar along the bottom here which has different viewing modes. So we are now in single photo view, but if you click the next one, this is reference photo. So you can drag another photo in there, and maybe that is your reference photo. And if you want to get the same look on all of the photos, you can then, any edits that you make will be on the active photo that you can see here on the right hand side. So you can sort of start adjusting this to try and get a bit of a similar look to what you've got on the left. So if you wanted to get the tones the same, the contrast the same, the blues the same, whatever, you can see them side by side, and then you know that if you're putting out a portfolio for that trip or something, you can see that they all kind of meet the same look and the same feel, rather than having one desaturated, one really bright, one really contrasty, things like that. So that is reference view, and again I am just going to reset this image and go back to single view. The next one along is a before and after. So pretty self-explanatory. Side by sides, before and after. The after one is on the right hand side, so again, any adjustments you make are shown on the right. The left one is the original, and you can just adjust it and see how you get on and whether you like it, or go back to the back to how it was if you need to. You will have to undo all the edits you've done, so that might be a good time to take a snapshot and then start your editing, and then if you don't like it, you can go back to where you were before. There are different ways you can compare these. If you come back down to the bottom here, you've got different ways of viewing it. So I think it cycles through if I keep pressing this. So this is side by side. You then have split screen, so any adjustments that you make are on the right hand side. So it's the same photo, but you can just see half of it adjusting. It does affect the whole photo. So if I brighten that up now and go back to single view, we have adjusted the whole photo. But it's just giving you an idea of what it was like before on the left, after on the right. The next view is top and bottom, so before and after pretty much, before at the top, after at the bottom, and the final view is back to just one photo on its entire, oh no it's not, it's split in the middle. So the same as being split left to right, but this is now just split top to bottom, after on the bottom, before on the top. Let's go back to single image view. In any of these views you have a drop down arrow here with lots of options that you can bring up down here. So you might want to add the color labels, you might want to add if you've got any ratings there. I don't tend to, I'm just going to keep that like it is. It's nice and clean there, but this single photo view will have, I don't know, 6, 8, maybe 10 options down here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 options. If you go into the reference photo and the active photo, there's only 4 or 5 options. So different options have different viewing modes. It's just really personal preference what you want to have on your screen at any one time. We are going to go back to single photo view. So down to the bottom panel, I am not going to talk about this in any detail at all because it is virtually identical to the Lightroom, to the library panel. You've got some options here you can have there if you wanted to drag a second screen and drag that to a second monitor and have a big screen with just a photo on. Any edits that you make are reflected in both of them. So if you had this screen here, this little window here, if you drag that out to a second monitor, you could have just that big screen next to you while you do all the work on the main monitor here and just see the changes on the second screen. And like I said, everything else is the same. You can see your recent history of where you've been, the folders that you've been to, things like that. But again, it's the same as the Lightroom, the library module, and that is it's explained in a lot more detail in episode 3, and it's from the 14th minute. So if you want to learn a bit about that particular panel, head to episode 3, go to the 14th minute, and that's where I talk about it there. I'm not going to repeat myself. People that have seen that don't want to hear it again. So right, so now that brings us onto the right panel, which is the main panel over here on the right hand side. So at the top we have the histogram. I'm going to go into this photo here for a reason. And the histogram at the top here, you can see there's these 2 triangles. That basically tells you if there is any clipping in the highlights and the shadows. So if I click that and click that, we can see that the background is blown out. That's fine. I want it to be pure white, so that's not a problem. And if there was something that was too black, then it gives you in blue. So anything that's clipped in the shadows is blue. Anything that's clipped in the highlights is red. If you want to see that, keep those triangles on at the top here. If you don't, turn them off. And you'll just see the photo as it is. Just under here it also tells you if you're working on the original photo or a smart preview. Again, smart previews I think we discussed in a previous video, so you should know all about those by now. And below there we do have the main editing panels. So they can be customized. If you right mouse click, we can customize them. It's really good on this side because you can turn them off like you can on the left hand side, but over here you can adjust them, you can reorder them. So if you use the calibration panel a lot, which I'll get to in a second, you can move that up the list. And on the right hand side, when you say save, calibration was at the bottom. Okay, I'm not going to relaunch it. But that will move the panel up the right hand side. So let me just take that down to the bottom because I want it at the bottom, but that just shows you how you can adjust the sort order, or you can turn them off. If you don't use a calibration panel at all, turn it off and it will disappear. We're going to leave that as it is for now. And again, you can do solo mode, which I love because it just means that when you open one panel, that's all you have open. If you open a second panel, the first panel closes, and so on. And it just keeps it nice and tidy down the right hand side there. So underneath histogram here we have 5 icons. The first icon is the main editing panel, which gives you all of these drop downs here that you can see. The next one is the crop, and that will introduce a new panel at the top. The next one is healing. So if you want to do any content aware cloning or healing of dust marks or something like that, it just drops that panel down. Red eye does the same again, drops another panel down. Very rarely do I use flash, so I'm not really prone to red eye, but that's the panel that you'll go to fix that. I'm not going to go through this, it's really simple. You just drag from the center, there isn't, and it will just give you a circle, and it will deal with the red eye. There isn't any red eye in this, hence the error message. And the final one is masking, which is probably one of the most sort of complex but also powerful parts of Lightroom, which again we're going to talk about real quickly in a second. So let me just close that again just by clicking on it. Click on it once, opens it up. Clicking on it again will close it down. I'm going to come back to the edit option at the end here. So I'm just going to go through these in a little bit of detail now. Now you know what the icons are. So in terms of cropping, it has in the original, in the drop down here, you can pick all these different popular ratios, you know, the aspect ratios, Instagram's 4:5, which is what we're in at the moment. Maybe you want a square crop, maybe you want, oh my gosh, I'm going to go back to original. So any options there. You can also go to here and you can enter your own aspect ratio if you want 2:1 or 3:2 or whatever you decide you want. You can type that in there and that will give you that aspect ratio. And over here we have an angle, like a spirit level. I'm going to come into this photo real quick because I know that at the bottom here, let's see, this table here is a bit of an angle. If you click on the spirit level icon, you'll get this little cross with the spirit level. Draw along the line that you want to be flat, and what it will do is it will make that line flat and adjust the image accordingly. So that now the image, or certainly the table, is flat. The rest of the image will adjust accordingly as well. I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to turn off crop, and let's go back to this photo. So I'm going to go to this photo now because I'm going to move on to the content aware and the healing area. If you can see, content aware basically replaces what you highlight with what's around it. So if I was to highlight this shoelace or whatever it is here in the corner of the picture, it will try and replace it with an area that is around it, and it will do quite a good job. If you know it's there, you will see a problem. You know, you will see a slight sort of discrepancy in the pattern or the lines or something, depending on what you're doing. But you can see there that that has done a pretty good job of removing that lace. If you didn't know it was there, you probably wouldn't see these sort of little defects here where the lines are a bit wonky and things like that, and maybe even assume that's the table, you know, because it's wood, it's grain, you know, it could fit in. So I'm going to Control Z that just to bring that back, because I'm going to go to another photo which is going to explain the healing. So if you see here, you can see all those little dots that have appeared. These are things that I've fixed because I didn't like what was on the wall where the joins in the wood paneling was. So up on the right hand side again, this has been healed with the healing brush tool, the content aware tool, sorry. Just here you've got a toggle on and off switch, and if you look at the background behind me, you can see it's brought in all these lines in between the panel. It's a real distraction. So I did go through and just highlight these, and it cleared them up really nicely, and it just makes the background look a lot smoother. That is the content aware tool. You can toggle it on and off here for all of these filters. This here is the healing brush tool, and all that does is it's for tiny dots really. So see all these specks on my jumper here. I'm gonna clear those in a second, but before I do, I just want to show you this area down here called Tool Overlay. You have 3 options. Auto basically means while you're on the photo, you can see what you've been working on. If you take the mouse off the photo, they disappear so you can see the proper photo. So that's what auto is. You have always, which means they'll always be on no matter where your mouse is, which I don't like because it's annoying. You have selected, which is just the one that you are highlighting will be the one that that comes up. And you have never, which means you'll never see them, which I don't like because, you know, where have you worked on, you can't tell. I tend to have it on auto for the time being because it just means that I can see where I've been working, but I can also take my mouse off the photo and see the photo as it should be. So real quick with the healing, I'm going to click on the healing there, and I'm going to just do a quick zoom in to my jumper, and you can see I'm just using the square brackets, just making the brush smaller, and we can just click on all of these little white specks, and you know, while these white specks are insignificant, when you sort of do it and you take them away, it does make quite a difference there. So if I now was to turn the toggle on and off, you can see all these little white dots appear back on my jumper again. So it's not too bad, to be honest with you, but I'd rather have it not there than there. So that's the healing brush tool. The clone tool is, you know, it's more designed for if you want to do something a bit more precise. So let's say I'm going to zoom in here. Let's say I want to get rid of this cloud here that we can see. I've got the clone tool highlighted. I'm making the brush bigger again using the square brackets on the keyboard, or you have the size slider up here as well. And I'm just going to highlight the cloud that I want to get rid of, and the computer will pick something of a similar shade, color, things like that. And taking the mouse off again, that's done a pretty good job. But sometimes it doesn't, and it might pick up that, for example. And now if you take the mouse away, you can see that clearly something's happened there. But it didn't. It did a good job. It picked something of the same colour, the same shade. So I would be happy with that if I wanted to get rid of that cloud, which I'm not that bothered about, because it adds a nice bit of texture to the horizon there, because it goes all the way along, as you can see. So that is the healing area. I'm not going to talk about Lightroom because about Red Eye, because I don't really use it in Lightroom, but I will talk about masking. Now, masking is brilliant. It's a new feature that came in within the last 12 months. It's one of the benefits for having this subscription service, because you get these updates straight away. This is a picture of me again, and I'm just going to use this as an example where you could easily select areas of the photo. So I just want to select the subject, and I'm going to click this box here to show the red overlay, and it's selected me. I can now edit that if I want myself to be brighter, darker, you know, if I want to make myself less saturated or more saturated, things like that. That is the subject mask. I'm going to take that mask off for the time being. You can also do person. So down here you can see it just happens to be the subject as well. So to start with, it's going to highlight the same thing, the entire person. But let's say I just wanted to fake it and make me look 10 years younger. I can highlight face skin. I can create a mask over my face, and I can pick the soften skin mask, or the soften skin edit preset, sorry, that's the word I'm looking for, and it will soften my skin and make me look 10 years younger. Don't use that at all, but you can if you wanted to. I might use a teeth. If there's a teeth whitening in there, you can select. I'm going to just undo what I've done, and you can select teeth. I mean, this isn't going to work on here because there isn't any teeth. It's already realised there's no teeth, but you could do the white around the eyes, the eye sclera, whatever that is. Create a mask for just the eyes, and now I can make the whites of my eyes scarily bright if I wanted to, but obviously I can make them a little bit brighter just to stand out and make them pop a little bit. But again, let's get rid of that mask. So that's the person mask. So we've got subject, we'll do the whole subject. It may be a bottle, it may be a flower, whatever the Lightroom thinks your subject is. I'm going to come to this one now because the next mask I'm going to show you is the sky. Let's fit this to screen. So this is the sky mask. It will identify the sky. Again, we're going to show the overlay, and it's highlighted the sky, and then we can make any edits that we want to make to the sky. Really easy to do. Sometimes it doesn't. You can see it sort of bled down into the horizon here, so you do have to be careful. It's not, if you're going to do it properly for a client, you'd want to take your time, obviously, but it's a quick fix for your travel photos maybe. So we're going to undo that. That's the sky one covered real quick. And the next one is the linear and radial filters that I'm going to show. I'm going to go to this photo here real quick, and I'm going to pick a radial gradient, which as the name indicates is a circle. You can highlight the area that you want to adjust, and then pick a preset. I'm just going to do exposure, because if I want to now, I can just make that a little bit brighter, and I'm going to go back to the normal edit, and I'm going to bring the exposure of the whole photo down, and we can see here now that will be a lot different. You can see the bottle top is still bright, whereas the rest of the photo is dark. That's the original, and that's the one with the edits, including the middle popping. So that has done a pretty good job. And up here in the little pop-out window, we can turn the masks on and off, so you can see the difference between the work you've done. What else do we want to look at in masks? I'm going to do a separate video about masks, so stay tuned for that, but it just gives you the options there of what you can do and how it can sort of really affect your photos. So we're going to go to the Edit tab now, which is the main panel that you're probably going to use most of the time. It's real simple. The first panel, the first drop down here is your basic panel, and this will have things in it like exposures, highlight, shadows, saturation, clarity, things like that, white balance, the basics of editing to get your exposure right and to get your colours right, or to get your white balance right. The next panel down is the tone curve. There are some presets in here that Lightroom have given you. Straight linear curve is the linear curve is the main one, but it does have a medium contrast. You can see the photos adjusted slightly, and it has a strong contrast. But it also gives you the option to make your own. So I've got this flat matte, which I use quite regularly. It depends on what the photo starts like, obviously. But you've got sort of the area at the top of the curve adjusts the highlights, the area at the bottom here adjusts the shadows, or just the blacks. And you can start with a linear curve, and a popular one to go with is what they call an S curve. So you just bring the highlights up a tiny bit and the shadows or the blacks down a little bit, just to get a bit more contrast in. You can obviously go as far as you want, and it's just really playing again to your personal preferences. And I kind of like that sort of faded filmy look, so I sometimes lift this end one up just to get that faded matte look. But again, all personal preference. So when you've done that, you can save your mask, which is what I've done with these three here: RC, flat matte, main, and just matte. I'm going to just go back to linear for the time being. Next down we have the HSL and colour tab. HSL, hue, saturation and luminance. I'm going to go to a different picture for this. I'm going to go back to our pano of LA, because there's lots of colour in this one. There's blues, there's reds, there's greens. So I just wanted to show you what the difference is. So hue basically adjusts the shade of the colour. So if you were to check out if I go into hue here and you look at the green on these trees, and I move the green left and right, left will take it towards yellow. As you can see, all the trees on the hill here have gone yellow. Right will take it towards a bluer green, as you can see there. We're going to go back to the middle. Luminance is saturation is the richness of that colour. So that will give you how sort of thick the colour is. So desaturated, there's no colour there. Fully saturated, it's really green and obviously oversaturated for me anyway. And luminance is how bright that colour is. So again, using the green, we can make the trees really dark or we can make the trees really bright. And it is again all personal preference as to what you like. You can also use these little targets here. There's little sort of crosshairs here. If you click on there, you get this icon. And if we look at the roof of this building here, I'm going to click and drag it up and you will see, oh, hold on a second, let me just go back to saturation. So I'm going to now click on the roof with saturation and you'll see everything where that colour is changing. So I'm desaturating it by the colour that I'm clicking on. Okay, so the greens, you notice the greens are hardly changing because it's more moving the greys and the blues, because that's what predominantly is the roof of this building here. I think it's a roof. And that is how you can adjust it. So if you're not sure what colour it is, you can use this little target, click on the area that you want to adjust, and it will adjust the whole photo for that colour. And you can also do it by colour at a time. So rather than doing it by hue, saturation and luminance and having every colour there, you can go into colour. Let's say you want to adjust the greens, you can have all the hues and the saturations and the luminance on the one page, on the one menu here. Or you can click on the one on the end here and have all the colours, which for me is way too busy. I tend to just use this and adjust them as I go. Next up is colour grading. So I'm going to go to this photo for the time being. This is not one that I use that often, but it can adjust the colour tones for certain parts of the image. And this is one that really should be used to your taste. So if I wanted to adjust the highlights, then I would bring, the shadows. So let's say I wanted to make the shadows bluer, I would adjust this wheel. And mainly the shadows have changed. So you can see there while the sky has changed slightly, it's not changed as much as the dark foreground. But if I was to now change the highlights and make the highlights say red, you can see that there are some highlights in the grass, but the top has changed more than the bottom. And you can balance it out at the bottom here with whether you want to overemphasize the highlights or whether you want to overemphasize the darker areas, the shadows. I, like I say, don't use that a great deal, but you have the option there to sort of color grade your photo to suit your style, basically. So that is color grading. So I'm going to go into this whiskey. Oh, hello, what's going on with this photo? Hang on a second. Where are we? Let's take that off. There we go. That was don't know what did that pick up? Oh, it's trying to adjust profile corrections for a 15mm lens, and this was not it's 14 to 35, but it was shot at 31. So let's turn that off. Anyway, that's not why we're here. We are now going to look quickly at the detail. So the detail is where you can adjust sharpening and noise reduction. Let's just zoom in 100% on the bottle. Actually, let's go into a bit more than that. Let's go into 200. So you can see all this grain here, that's noise. It was shot at 102,400 ISO. And we can just adjust the noise and we'll smooth this out. We'll lose a bit of sharpness, so we might want to bring the sharpness up. And you just play around until you've got the balance that you like in your photo. And again, you've got the little toggle here where you can turn on and off the switch. And you can just mess around with it until you're happy with the end result. And it's just good for noise reduction and sharpening. If you hold down the option key on your Mac and hit the masking, you can choose which part of the image you want to sharpen. So if you didn't want to sharpen all the noise on the label and you just want to sharpen the outskirts of the bottle, you can adjust the slider accordingly. And that is now just adjusting the sharpness on the edges of everything, as you can see from the black and white lines, and not as much on the label in the middle. So that is the detail area. Next up we have lens correction. So I'm just going to go back to me for the first one. So this was taken with a 24-105. As you can see, that's what it's corrected for. There's going to be a slight change. If I untick this box, you can see the background shift slightly. I mean, there's not too, it's been taken at 65mm, so it's not too much to fix, but there is a slight change there. And it's good to apply that based on your lens, and it will fix any sort of any adjustments it needs to based on the lens that you're using. Now next up is the transform tab. So we're going to open the transform tab, and I'm going to go to this picture right here, and I have no idea what happened when I took this. I can only assume that I was drunk. It's taken in Canada. It's taken in where were we? Vancouver, I think. It's a good example of how the transform tab can help. Okay, so notice how the horizon is wonky, the buildings are leaning and everything. If I click on auto, now that has made a massive difference. It does have to crop it slightly otherwise you'd have white space around the outside possibly. And it's taken the top of the building off here, but you can sort of make tiny little adjustments if you wanted to, just to, yeah, yes, that's making the images wider, but it still looks far better than that. And that using the transform tab. There are all these other options that you can play around with. Again, we might do another video on that. This is just an overview of the Develop Module, don't forget. And I'm already waffling on far more than I wanted to. So that's it. That's a much better picture now. It's done that quick correction. Next we have the effects. Let's go into max. We are going to give, you've got vignetting and grain, so let's make it look a bit older. We can stick a vignette on, we can stick some grain in. We may want to change the midpoint here and the roundness and all sorts of things here that you can adjust to your taste again. And that's gone from a nice clean photo to one that looks like it was taken ISO 3 million. I'm going to reset that. So that was the effects panel, not much in there, just grain and vignetting. Finally is calibration, which is the one tab I use the least, but let's have a look at how we can dramatically affect a photo with it. Now, this was a shot in Canada again. This is supposed to use, I think, this is supposed to be to calibrate your camera's colours for camera raw or something. I must admit, I haven't seen a need to use it that often. But I'm just going to show you now how quickly you can make a difference and just give your photo a totally different look. If I bring these two blue ones to the left, I take these two blue ones to the right, I move this up. I have practiced this obviously, and I'm going to bring the blue down, and I'm going to bring the, I'm in saturation I want to be in. Let me just reset luminance. Saturation, I'm going to bring the blues down, I'm going to desaturate the blues and the aquas, and look at this for before. Let me just do the orange as well, because that gives it like a nice, like there's a sun there. And now let's see them side by side, but we want it to be side by side, side by side. Look at that. It's a different photo now. It looks more, it's warmer, it looks like the sunrise, it feels like the sun's bouncing off the water and catching the top of these reeds, and you've got the sun in the clouds, and it's made a massive difference to a photo. And it could be taken at 2 different times of the day if you didn't know it wasn't. So again, all subjective. Play around with what you want to play around with and find your style really. What did I adjust up here? Oh, let's just reset the photo. There we go. Okay, so that is the calibration tab, and I think that's it. Okay, yep, that's it. That's all the panels done. Lots to do there. As you can see, Lightroom is more powerful than it's ever been, and as updates are made, as things are developed, it's only going to get better. So yeah, that's the Develop module. So there we go, guys. Thank you. This heater's burning my leg. Oh, let me turn it off. Okay. So there we go. Thank you very much for watching. That was episode 6 in the beginner's Lightroom course. I hope you found that interesting. It felt a bit bitty as I was jumping around, but hopefully you got something out of that. If you did, what's really useful if you give me a thumbs up and a like for this video, and do all the usual stuff, like, share, subscribe, comment. Ask me down below actually if there's any of those panels, any of those areas that you'd like me to go into more detail, because I don't know everything about all of them. I know a lot of it about most of them, but I want to learn it all. So if there's something that you want to learn and you haven't got the time to learn it and you want me to do it for you, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to investigate it, figure it out, and do a video for you guys. Next up, I think I will go into a bit more detail on the left panel. So I'm going to talk about presets and how you save them and how you can export photos with them and things like that. So stay tuned. Have a great day. See you in the next video.